Today's Super Bowl recap edition of the More and Conley Football Show is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime offers you unlimited free one-day delivery on millions of items, and most importantly, Amazon Prime offers you Amazon Instant Video, which is unlimited streaming on thousands of movies and TV shows, including Amazon original content like Golden Globe winners Mr. Robot and Mozart in the Jungle, as well as Top Gear. Coming soon exclusively to Amazon Instant Video is Top Gear. You can also borrow thousands of titles from the Kindle Owner's Lending Library, and you get secure, unlimited photo storage with Anywhere access. You can get all of that Top Gear coming soon exclusively with our free 30-day trial. Use our link, thereadoptional.com/Amazon. You get all of those Prime benefits with no strings attached by clicking our link for the 30-day free trial at thereadoptional.com/Amazon. That's thereadoptional.com/Amazon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moore and Conley Football Show. So glad you could join us once again here for our Super Bowl review. It all went down at Levi Stadium last night, and we're here to review the great 24-10 win for the Denver Broncos. My name is Tom Moore, your humble host, and joining me, as always, he's very tired because obviously the amount of writing he does, he stayed up till God knows what time after the game last night. He's supping on the coffee to keep him going. It's Ollie Conley. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
I'm not bad, but he's still reflecting on a fascinating game.
Were you more excited by Coldplay or more excited by the game?
The game, but I have comments on Coldplay that I will share at the end. I mean, we'll talk football first, but then we'll get into that. Anyway, just so the listeners know, if you want to hit us up, you can do on Twitter, at ThomasMoore27, at Ollie Conley. You can also find us using the hashtag MCFS if you want to hit us up with a question, or contact at thereadoptional.com. Keep checking out thereadoptional.com. There'll be great content in there now following the Super Bowl and obviously going into the off-season. But Ollie, I think there's no news. There's nothing like that. Just play a tune and let's get to the game. As I said, I will touch on the halftime show at the end of this, but let's talk football first. Ollie, I literally don't know where to start.
A mastermind of a performance from Denver. Defensively, a struggle offensively, two championship caliber defenses. I know that's a cliche, but it's undeniable that those two teams, from a metric standpoint and from a schematic standpoint, are two all-time great units, which is remarkable. Both in the same field, both played at a high level and kind of cancel each other out. Denver comes away with a win.
It is incredible as well, because if you think about it from an overall perspective, you'd say Carolina going into this, they've got a more balanced team, offense and defense. And then Denver, you'd say great defense, lights out, best defense in the league, an all-time great defense. And then an offense that stutters and splutters because obviously it's got a creaking Peyton Manning at the controls. And you'd look at that and you'd say, as most of us did with the winner that Cam Newton is as well, throwing that in, we all thought Carolina going to win. I mean, it's not like they were prohibitive favourites in terms of the odds, but I think they were prohibitive favourites in terms of the amount of people that picked them. I did not see many people taking Denver, Ollie.
No, I think that shifted maybe in the last 24 hours before the game, but certainly on the readoptional.com, it was a clean sweep for the Panthers.
Exactly, and it was a great performance from the Broncos, mastermind. And do you think this is one of those games that you kind of say, this is down to the coaching? Obviously, and Von Miller and the great players in the defense, but it was containing a player in Cam Newton that so far was uncontainable.
Yeah, it was a remarkable coaching performance, no doubt, and I have some problems with what Carolina did with their coaching staff, but I do want to make one point. We will talk about how great the coach performance was from Wade Phillips and company, but let's also not forget that as much as I love Wade Phillips and as great as he is, you cannot teach the first step explosion of Von Miller, and the amount of times he was clowning Mike Remmers wasn't really a schematic thing, though they did some very interesting stuff to create some fun matchups. A lot of that was just winning at the snap and first step explosion, bending the edge and hitting Cam Newton. Like, you can't teach that the same way you couldn't teach it the other week against Marcus Cannon and Von Miller. You just can't block the guy when he gets off to that kind of speed.
I'll tell you how we'll break this down and how we'll look at this. I think let's look from a coaching schematic perspective first, and then we'll talk about those individual performances. We'll talk about Peyton, we'll talk about Cam, we'll talk about Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, maybe, TJ Ward, and obviously some players on the Carolina side of things like to have a conversation about Ted Ginn as well, perhaps. But let's talk first about coaching. You touched on the fact there that you weren't happy with what Carolina did. What did they do wrong?
I thought they did a fair amount wrong. Now, first of all, everyone's going to talk for the next week. People hear this a bunch, so we'll get this out of the way. People talk about vanilla offense, this kind of stuff. You didn't hear that all the time leading up to the game. They run perhaps the most intricate running game in the NFL. Their passing game leaves a lot to be desired in terms of window dressing and that kind of stuff. But I think they believe they could come in the same way we all did, of as long as we can get a run game going, we're going to pound this team and we're going to get 30 points and we'll walk away with a victory quite comfortably. And so they didn't feel a need to bring in a bunch of different stuff that they'd done before. And Wade Phillips mentioned it himself in his post-game press conference. We saw every single play they had outside of the attempted double pass with Ted Ginn, we'd seen a bunch of times on tape before. They don't do a great deal of things, and so we'd seen all to prepare for, and I think that the Carolina staff not assumed, that might be the wrong expression, but they just believed in their team that we're better than them, we can come and do our stuff, and if we execute at that high level, we'll win the game. My problem is when that doesn't go well, and when Von Miller is so destroying your team, and they were being completely outcoached up front, then you have to try and find ways to do different stuff. And the key simple thing is to try and move Cam Newton around and alter the launching point. It was a 5-7 step drop on almost every throw. You allow the linebackers and the defense ends to tee off 7 yards, 9 yards deep into the backfield, and they know exactly where Cam Newton's going to be. And part of being an edge rusher is trying to locate the quarterback before you can hit the guy, which is why interior pressure is so important. And they had Cam Newton in the same spot every time, unless he broke the pocket. And he's not really a scrambling guy. He's a design read runner, or sometimes he will scramble, and he did so in this game a couple of times. They had to try and move the pocket, and the one time they did it very effectively was that throwback to Greg Olsen to get a huge gain for a first down.
Yeah, looking at it then from a Denver perspective, they say, therefore, that they saw everything before on tape and they saw it was coming at them. But when we were talking in the preview show earlier last week, we were saying that, how can you stop it? Can you only contain it? And we were talking about putting spies, maybe bringing the robber down with the safety and looking at containing Cam Newton. And then how would you mix up the rush and the dropping into coverage? Would you go and then come back, show those stunts, etc.? And it seemed like they just brought it all the way through. What was Denver's tactic? What did Bum do in the end?
Well, they did some really interesting things. So first of all, taking away Greg Olsen, we said, was key. Greg Olsen was non-existent all night except for that throwback pass that we mentioned. And it was not a gamble performance. Again, it's believing in the ability of your team. They played man-to-man almost the entire night. They said, we don't think guys like Ted Ginn can get off press man coverage, and they could not. And so we don't think you're going to have time to get those second, third movement throws that Carolina likes to get, where plays break down or where there's just more time to use the double moves. And they thought they could just hit Cam Newton before they were able to get those throws, and they did that. Now, Carolina does an interesting thing with their blocking scheme, Tom, where they'll have a fullback or tight end in, usually one, and a running back, and then they'll slide the protection to one side and have the fullback and running back block the other side. Therefore, they already moved the line of scrimmage one way, and it just gives them that immediate kick, and it gives them that immediate advantage up front. Denver just said, let's stunt that side, and so they could bring guys like DeMarcus Ware to the interior of the line, and they could move Derek Wolfe, and they could move Malik Jackson around. It was an incredibly, incredibly impressive game, and like we also mentioned in the pre-game show, just trying to confuse Cam by bringing blitzes from different angles. They brought delayed safety blitzes. Risky strategy takes some time to develop. They were able to get home with it, doing all kind of different things, and then once again, you just get one-on-one matchups like DeMarcus and Von Miller. First step explosion, you can't stop those guys.
Can we talk about Carolina being behind as well? Because it's kind of something that they'd never really faced into in the postseason, and they didn't face into very often during the season, Ollie. They were often getting ahead and cruising at that point. Teams were chasing them down, and they kind of took advantage of that. This situation, I don't want to talk specifics with Cam or stuff like that. We'll get onto the players individually in a minute. But do you think this kind of, it was a shock to the system? They weren't expecting the way things turned out, particularly in the first quarter or so?
No, and I'm not a big narrative guy, as you know, and people are talking about, Cam looks off and is the stage too big? He's just playing a really good team. The other team is here for a reason. They're very good as well. It's the best defense in the league. That's the best single unit in the league by a mile. Can we all admit that? That's fair, right? That's far and away the best unit, and he had to play it. So that's not easy. And once again, when you're getting hit on 50% of your dropbacks, he was under pressure on 50% of his dropbacks. His league average this year has been around the 35% mark. It's just going to be a tough night. Was he great? No, but was guys wide open that he was missing? There was maybe the first initial throw you could point to. I mean, he's a 60% thrower anyway, so he's going to miss throws. Was he good? No. What certainly wasn't great. It was just a tough night. They were outplayed and outcoached and just beat up by Denver. And the inability to change and adapt in the game was the most worrying thing.
can you explain something for me as well? Because, I mean, I was watching the game, and I've got a terrible crick in my neck because we were at a bar with a couple of friends, and we were just so close to the screen. You know when you have to crane your neck up?
Yes.
God, by the third quarter, I was in agony. Anyway, watching it, it just seemed like Denver all the time. The pressure was there. Cam Newton was under pressure. You've just pointed out how many times he was put under duress during the game. Was this because, you know, it was just down to the first step and the quickness of Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, etc.? Or was it because Bum was bringing more heat? Was he doing elaborate things?
It was both. I mean, they were playing single high for a lot of the game, and they would bring the middle linebackers, they would shift, as I mentioned, with what Carolina does by shifting the pocket and by moving the tight end fullback or running back to one side and then letting the line slide the other way. They would bring the weak side or Mike linebacker, be it Trevathan or usually Brandon Marshall, and they would blitz that guy at those two players, and it would just free up a one-on-one matchup on the other side. And when we get one-on-one with DeMarcus Ware or Von Miller, that's why you end up with Miller had 2.5 sacks, Ware had 2 sacks. They all had a bunch of hits. There's that. And then the other thing is the interior pressure. That's a thing that a lot of people don't remember when they try and find these stud edge rushers. You have to try and complement it with interior pressure, otherwise guys can just step up. Now, Cam isn't a big step up guy anyway. He likes to just hang back there and he'll just throw from the back foot. He's not too bothered about stepping up through the pressure. But those guys, if you don't have that interior pressure, then you can step up and then they just start running around the quarterback and falling away on the backside. When you get that internal pressure, and Derek Wolfe was a monster all game, and Norwell, the guard, had to go out for Carolina, and Malik Jackson was a stud all game. By the way, one play in this game which I absolutely love, which people should go and watch. Malik Jackson is a free agent this offseason, lines up zero technique, man-on-man with Ryan Kill, stud center, spin move off the snap from a nose tackle. You never see that. Crushes Cam Newton. Unbelievable performance from the entire front, and that interior pressure leads to what DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller can do.
Okay, let's use this as a bit of a segue to go and talk about some of the individual performances now. But watching the Panthers in this game in general, and then we can talk about some of the individuals, but it reminds me of the old line that we used to say, not we perhaps, but it used to be said of Ronnie O'Sullivan. The only person that can beat Ronnie O'Sullivan is Ronnie himself. And I felt that the only team that could beat the Panthers out there, and I know the Broncos were fantastic, but I felt like the Panthers beat themselves. They got in their own way, and the mistakes that they made ultimately caused, this loss. Because despite the fact that Denver had that great defense, if Carolina had not made as many mistakes, dropped passes, some of the fumbles and other things that happened, then perhaps they would have not blown the Broncos out, but they would have got the victory, Ollie.
Well, there's no doubt this was one score game with 3.5 minutes to go. So there's no doubt if they'd executed better, then they would have been more successful. That's clear. That's self-evident. But I just want to give all the credit to the Broncos. I know this is all going to be about Cam Newton the next few weeks, which is unfortunate and unfair, or Peyton's retirement. I just thought it was an incredible game plan from Denver, and to have the balls just say, hey, we see everything we've seen there before. Try something different, and they didn't do it. And this is a problem. When you get to the third quarter of the Super Bowl, and it's just not going well, you just have to be different. And maybe that's unfair on the coaching staff. This team's been wildly successful doing what they've done. But where was the tempo? Where was the idea of, hey, let's come out in the third quarter. Cam can operate this thing from the line of scrimmage. Let's go no huddle and let's try and wear these guys down. I mean, they have a deep rotation. They bring in Shaq Barrett. They bring in Shane Ray. Shane Ray was very good when he came in on limited snaps. But where was the idea to try and slow down these pass rushers by tiring them out or spreading them out and going 5 wide? They play a bunch of tight formations and bunch formations in Carolina, and I get that. And again, it's been successful this season. But Wade Phillips goes into the press conference afterwards and says, hey, they can't run out of 3 wide receiver sets. And they tried to run out of almost every single time. And guess what? We shut it down. So he knew going in what to shut down. So you have to adapt. And that was really disappointing to me.
Okay, well, let's move on to those individual performances then. Let's talk about the 2 quarterbacks. First of all, Cam Newton. Now, Ollie, it's going to be very rash of me to say this. He was, like you said, he was playing against a great team. You can't just say he blew it or he laid an egg. I don't think he laid an egg, but it almost seemed like this was his coronation. This was his coronation, stepped out, and it was going to be sachet onto the field, and it was going to be an easy job for him. And it just didn't turn out that way. And I have no position to judge Cam Newton in terms of his preparation at all. I'm not saying he wasn't prepared. I'm not saying that at all. But did we finally find the game, Ollie, that actually got to him a little bit, was a little bit too big for him, and maybe therefore he'll be wiser the next time around?
Don't use that expression, Tom. That's silly. game too
Why
big
would
for
you?
him. He got beat up. He didn't play well, and he was petulant in the game because he's always petulant when he loses. That's big reason why people don't like him is that he spits his dummy out when he loses. That's true. But the game being too big for him, that's just not true. Come on now. You're smarter than that. No, the game is too big for the guy. First of all, he's out there dancing pre-game and stuff. He's clearly not irritated. He missed throws and he was being hit around all game. Like, he didn't play well, but it has something to do with the size of the game. It's irrelevant. He's played in 100,000-seater stadiums in a championship game before in front of millions of people. I'm sure that the national championship game had a similar TV audience to the Super Bowl. The size is irrelevant. He got beat up by a good team and he didn't play well.
Okay, wait, right. I understand exactly what you're saying, Ollie. I am merely putting the suggestion out there that Cam Newton was slightly, in some way, like most people are when they go out and play in the Super Bowl, impacted obviously by the size of the game. And as things started to cascade around him, what happened was it just got even harder for him. I know he's a great winner and he's been in front of those, 100,000-seater stadiums with all those things, with everything on the line before. He's not been in the Super Bowl, Ollie. And I know that you're going to say, Tom, you're smarter than that, and that's ridiculous. It's another game, and he's done all of it before. I truly believe myself, and this is where I disagree with you, that it is different as a game. Hugely different. And therefore, I think it affected him, as it affects everybody.
I think that his offensive line got bullied at the snap. He couldn't complete rhythm throws, which has happened throughout his career. He's a 60% passer anyway, as we mentioned. And he had throws that were dropped. I mean, he got strip sacked on one play, and he threw a ball to Ted Ginn into his hands that Ted Ginn couldn't catch and was picked. So I just don't see it was the stage too big for Peyton Manning. He stunk all night. I just don't think it's the stage thing. I think he didn't play well and they got out-coached.
I just think Peyton Manning stunk because he can't actually physically do it anymore. There's a difference.
That's fair, but I just don't never buy into the narratives of the stage and that kind of stuff. I just think it's.
Well, what about this guy as the winner, Ollie? He is the big winner. He wins at everything. He lost.
He lost the Super Bowl against a very good team. We watched it. They played very well.
And I completely understand what you're saying again.
And like we said, with 3 minutes to go, they had a chance to win the game.
And he didn't. And I'm just saying, I completely.
But what's that got to do with stage? Like, 3 minutes to go,
okay,
he has a chance to win the game.
Stage thing then. Move on from the stage thing. What I'm saying is, this is the big guy who wins. He wins at everything that he does, and he lost. I'm not sure what I'm trying to get out of that in terms of a response for you. I'm just putting it out there, Ollie. He lost. He is the big winner. He wins at everything, and he lost.
He did indeed. Tom Brady's lost Super Bowls.
Well, what does this do for Cam Newton in terms of how people view him?
Obviously, people couldn't wait to hammer him anyway. People don't like him because of the petulant stuff. And like you said, so for instance, the roughing the passer call, he starts banging his fist into the ground. It literally looks like a kid on the floor.
He really did.
The dummy out. It just did. And that's not a good look for him because people are looking for a reason to not like him because he does that kind of stuff. I didn't understand why, and that's why I think people hammered him with the post-game press conference. I don't know what people are expecting from him there. Like you said, Tom, first of all, he doesn't take losing well anyway because he doesn't have to do it a bunch of the time. Then he goes to the post-game press conference. He just lost the Super Bowl. And what's he supposed to do? Like, wax lyrical? He blamed himself. He didn't blame anyone else. And he said that they outplayed him. So there's the soundbite you need. In black and white, it looks fine. When you see the video of him walking away, people get very angry. I don't know what you want from the guy. He didn't play very well.
No, I understand what you're saying as well. I think that it's fascinating, really, because I understand no one would take losing in the Super Bowl well. No one at all. Of course not. The very fact that he hasn't lost very often, therefore he can't take it very well, don't think is an excuse, personally. And I don't think someone should take loss like that in that kind of position.
But how did he take it so badly, though? That's what I don't understand. People are saying he took it really, really... What did he do that was so bad? He didn't blame everyone.
No,
he didn't talk.
I'm not, and why would he wouldn't blame anyone? Of course he wouldn't go out there and blame everyone. It's just, I think everyone's going to, like you say, everyone's going to get on Cam Newton. And I'm with you, Ollie. I don't think they should. I think he lost. It was difficult for him. Let's move on. But he certainly didn't effing help himself with what he did in that press conference because it showed childishness. Because even though you're difficult and you've lost the big game, you can offer a few more words than he did and maybe stay there a minute or so longer that would, to be quite honest, completely eradicate it as a story afterwards that, Cam Newton's acting like a child.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to just be the Cam defender guy, but I'm just doing this from the rational standpoint. Look at what he said. Like, first of all, the question was asked to him was, are you disappointed? He just lost the Super Bowl.
That is a bullshit question.
All the questions were horseshit. One question was intelligent. Did they do something you haven't seen them do before?
Yeah, that was a good question.
And so, but he's not there to do an X's and O's breakdown at the end of the game. He just lost the Super Bowl 15 minutes ago. I mean, come on now. And all the other guys, by the way, further down the line, the only one who said anything of note was Greg Olsen. It's just because he's Cam Newton. I get that he's the face of the franchise. But if he said anything, it would have just been the horseshit quarterback robot lip service. So now people just want the cliches. So when Russell Wilson does it, we laugh because he's a robot and he has no personality. Then Cam Newton does what he does. He's pissed off. He's upset. He doesn't want to be there. They shouldn't probably have to do those friggin' post-game press conferences 15 minutes after they lose the Super Bowl. And so when he does that, now it's like, oh, we should have just been in cliche mode. What was he supposed to say? It would have all been cliches otherwise. And then who cares?
I think what's interesting from my perspective, Ollie, the way I look at this is Cam Newton is a fantastic player. He's always going to be a great player. The problem is the media, and the problem is how people are perceived. And through what's happened there and the manner in which he lost, and a couple of those instances in that, that last, which he thought should have been roughing the passer and he had his tantrum, and then the press conference. Now everybody's going to treat him and have this asterisk against his name that is going to be completely unwarranted. And when people talk about who are the best quarterbacks in the league, they're going to say Brady and Roethlisberger, and they should say Newton as well, but they probably won't, because he's going to have this asterisk because of who he is as a person rather than who he is as a footballer. And I think that it's just going to build into this thing now, Ollie, and I'm completely on your side in terms of defending Cam. I think he's just going to have this whole stink on him. And I don't think it's fair. He's still a young guy.
It already has, and someone points to me, what has he done? What has he done? The dancing thing. He came out and said, if you stop me, I'll stop dancing. Guess what? Did he dance yesterday? No, they beat the crap out of him. There was no dancing. They were dancing. So that's what you do. You go and beat him up, and then you win, and then you get to dance. Like, again, all I heard last night was classless, wasn't classy. Show me in the quotes where he wasn't classy. Show me the quotes. He said there was errant passes. That's what he said. He said, we didn't block anyone. We couldn't stop anyone. We dropped passes. They were errant throws. They beat us. They were smarter than us. They were better than us. He gave them credit.
Is it 90% of communication non-verbal?
Yeah, but if you just look at it in black and white, where was the non-classless? He walked away early. He did 5 minutes of questions. He got asked, question number 1, are you disappointed? Duh. Question number 2, did they do anything different? He said, no. Like, he just didn't want to answer the questions. When Beast Mode does it, they give him a Skittles commercial.
I love that. It's brilliant. What a bell end as well, retiring halfway through the freaking Super Bowl, towards the end of the Super Bowl. That is a D move, in my opinion.
I like that. The boss move. I don't care. He knows no one's talking about him today. He doesn't want to have people talk about him. He bails out. And the way to do it as well with just a picture, hanging boots. I loved it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's not talk about that. We can talk about that in the off-season. Back to Cam Newton. You were just saying something, I was about to make a point. That's really awkward when you're on a podcast and you forget what you actually want to say. I think that you say, what has he done? And you're right. What had he done?
Yeah, he danced.
At this point, not much. But what has happened now is kind of made, it's almost legitimized the nonsense that was before. And that's the problem that he's got. He's not done anything, but he could have completely stamped everything out and been the winner and been a classy guy and thanked the teams and fans if he won the game, stuff like that. Or even if he'd lost, taken it a little bit differently. But what's happened, even though really when you actually take it, just on face value, it's not really a big deal. When you put it in the context of him as a player, his personality and his history in the league now, just validates everything before, and it just digs him a deeper hole.
I'm just not going to moralize on someone who just lost the Super Bowl and be like, he should have done this, should have done that.
I'm not asking you to moralize.
I'm not saying you are, but like you said, this is the perception now, which is born out of, they just created it. I don't get what the polarization is. They just created that he was, and everyone started talking about it like he was. Now they're validating that he is polarizing, yet no one's getting to the root and saying, what is it that he does that's polarizing outside of dancing? And like we said, stop him, and the team finally stopped him. Let's go back to this. He took a team that has Devin Funchess, rookie, no Kelvin Benjamin, Greg Olsen, who was non-existent in this game, Ted Ginn, Corey Brown, Philly, these guys who shouldn't even be in the league, and they went 15-1 and got to the Super Bowl. I don't get it.
Let's give it some credit and draw a line under it and then move on, Ollie, because I think, we could go round the house about Cam Newton. You know what? It'll probably be something we talk about in the off-season with relation to other quarterbacks and, how teams are going to do next season. But let's talk a little bit about some of the other players, and let's stay on the Carolina side of things, because Ted Ginn got on my nerves in this game, Ollie. I mean, there was diving out of play, not good looking for contact, but then there was also, more importantly than that ball that he dropped that TJ Ward picked off, that was in his hands, man.
Yeah, and they'll blame Cam Newton again. and Cam Newton threw a pick. That was right in his hands. I mean, this is just what Ted Ginn is, though. I mean, again, it's narrative versus just seeing the odds of the career. I mean, the guy is an explosion playmaker where you get the ball to him downfield and he can make plays, yet he steps out of bounds on almost every play when he can do. And he's going to whiff on passes that are 50-50 balls. He's going to not go into contact when there's balls that are 50-50 throws. And he's going to miss passes that apparently, according to Phil Simms, were just thrown too hard. Like, that makes any sense.
Oh my God, did he actually? Because I couldn't hear the comments.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, he said that ball was thrown too hard, so he couldn't catch it. That makes sense in the National Football League. That's how players live. I wonder if a ball's ever been thrown too hard at Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Owens. Insane. Yeah, he's just...
If Brett Favre ever threw a ball too hard. He broke people's fingers and they still caught it.
Yeah, he's a league average player, if below league average, and he has an elite trait, which is run after the catch, which he uses as a returner and getting the ball in his hands, and so he's not supposed to be a possession guy who goes down the field on a 20-yard in. That's just not what he is, and that showed itself in the worst spot.
What about Jonathan Stewart as well? I mean, he got banged up quite early. I mean, that looked nasty. I thought his leg had snapped in half when he went over early in the game. Do you think that change things for Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, they needed a run game. We talked about this, that if they were going to stop those edge rushers in the preview, they have to find a run game, and they have such an intricate run game, and they just couldn't really get it going. Now, they finished with 118 total yards, but 45 of it is just Cam running around and trying to make plays, and I think he got like 20 of them on one run. So they just could not get anything going on the ground, and credit to, again, this is where you look at the greatness of Wade Phillips and what he did, and he identified it pre-game and he spoke about it post-game, that they usually have their four down linemen, which is obviously Wolf, Jackson, then they have Miller and Ware, and when they're in when the offense is in a 3 wide receiver set, he usually goes to that sub package of those 4 guys. Yet he saw on tape that Carolina does not cope well when they're in a 3 wide receiver set with 5 down linemen and crowding the box. He noticed it on tape, so he adjusted his scheme to this game and put 5 down linemen when it was 3 wide receiver sets and was able to shut down the run game. Just a very, very smart coaching move.
Okay, smart coaching. Are there any other performances on the Carolina side of the ball that you'd like to pick up on? I mean, that Coney Ely interception was unreal. Luke Kuechly, just phenomenal again. But it was almost just he didn't have any help to some extent.
Their defense was out of their minds good. That's a championship caliber defense. There was Super Bowl worthy. Again, a scoring defense, creating turnovers. They just couldn't get a score, a pick six. And that in the end kind of cost them. I mean, Denver, with 3 minutes to go, they were the first team in history to not score an offensive touchdown in the Super Bowl. Just remarkable. This was, make no mistake, this isn't even just no one's hammering Peyton Manning. He did what he needed to do. We talked about it throughout the playoffs. Can he just manage the game and not turn the ball over? He was a net detriment in this game, but that's fine. And the defense not just won the game in terms of their play and field position, they actually put the points on the board for the team.
Okay, let's move on to the Denver side of the ball. Well, Peyton Manning, what can we say about him, really, to be quite honest? I mean, he had a pretty lousy game, Ollie.
He wasn't great. I mean, I know an interesting trend in the playoffs. They are their best drive in both the New England game and then this Carolina game was the opening drive of the game. So the pre-scripted stuff between him and Kubiak, with 2 weeks to prepare. What have they noticed on film? What can they do that maybe they can do differently? And they come out the first drive, they drive down the field, they get the field goal. Then after that, the scores are all in unbelievable field position, which is in the Carolina territory, off the sacks and the fumbles and the interception. And they get a touchdown right at the end from C.J. Anderson, which was just kind of to put the icing on the cake. They could just kick the field goal and got out of there with a win. Yeah, he wasn't good. He couldn't throw the ball. He can't move in the pocket as well as I thought he could do coming into the game. But he did what he had to do, which is hand the ball off and then look to the defense. I
actually want to talk about another Manning, Ollie. I want to talk about Eli up there watching the game in the box. Did you see this?
Amazing, yeah.
Well, I believe it was when Cam Newton got that fumble laid on, it was recovered. TJ Ward, just really, kind of really sealed it, to be quite honest. I think they went up to the box where Manning's family was, and Eli almost looked like he was disappointed, Ollie.
It was the Anderson touchdown.
Was it the Anderson touchdown?
It was the Anderson touchdown where the whole box erupted. Now, I couldn't tell if it was whether he was just confused, whether there was a tape delay, but everyone else was celebrating, but him and Archie weren't, which I don't know if it's because they have team allegiance to another team or what have you, and whether he doesn't want to be seen to be cheering the Broncos.
Do you think they were just because they're football guys, they were still nervous because it wasn't over yet?
No, that was pretty much over. I think that part of it was the not cheering because he's supposed to be a Giants player at the Super Bowl, but it's his brother, so everyone would have forgiven him. But you can not cheer, but yet not do that face. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a middle ground of just being like clapping and smiling that's not that face, which looks like someone attacked your mother. Like, that's weird.
It's another one to add to the portfolio of Eli Manning faces.
That's the best. That's a classic. Now, there's the one that everyone always tweets as the meme.
Yeah.
But that one's great because his brother just won the Super Bowl and is about to ride off into the sunset, and he couldn't look more annoyed.
Yeah, it's like, damn him, my older brother. I always had one over on him, and now we're bloody level pegging again. Nightmare. Let's talk a bit about Von Miller, and we'll talk about some other guys on the Denver side of the football. I mean, the biggest thing that I could say about Von Miller is that on that first play that got that touchdown for the Denver Broncos, really fired things off, got them that 10-0 lead. He ripped the ball out of Cam Newton's hands. And it wasn't just he had it holding it like a loaf of bread because he was about to throw it. He was trying to hold on to it. This is Cam Newton, and he ripped it away from him, Ollie. This guy is a beast.
He is indeed. Now, let's not let all the stories go by without mentioning the use of amphetamines and marijuana 2 years ago. And not just doing that, but also pissing in a cup and then knowing you cheated, which he did, and then trying to bury the sample, which is why he got 2 extra games than just 2 games.
Literally bury it like a dog.
Yeah, he hit, if you remember, he tried to fluff the sample, which is why they gave him a couple of extra games. Anyway, I'm only joking. I love Von Miller. I mean, the great thing about him, and he has this kind of Dwight Freeney-ish thing, which is where he's going to hit you with the speed rush all game. Like we said, just first step explosion, hit the outside, knowing that he's setting up a key moment in the game. Dwight Freeney always did this, and Dwight Freeney did this year when he came into big game scenarios. It's just using what you do best because he's an elite athlete and being able to beat guys like Mike Remmers to the outside. And it gets Remmers so scared that it's that kind of thing that Marcus Cannon did, where you jump step so far immediately to try and deal with the outside, then he's just going to rip on the inside or come with a swim move or spin move when he needs it in big spots, and then just career and crash the quarterback. And he did it twice in this game late on. He set up that outside move all game long. He had Mike Remmers just scared. He had the double team scared. The double team goes to the outside position rather than the inside. Remmers goes outside as well, leaving the inside pretty much open. Then he comes with a spin move and just rocks Cam Newton right at the end.
What about the other guys on that defense that, showed up not only tonight, but throughout the whole of the season? I mean, Talib made some stupid mistakes early on in terms of mental errors and giving away penalties, but, he got better during the game. And then you got DeMarcus Ware as well, Ollie, who, kind of just, it's the autumn of his career, possibly even the winter. And I am really happy for this guy that he managed to walk away with a ring.
Me too. He's going to go down the Denver Broncos Ring of Honor, I imagine now, whatever they call theirs.
Do you think so? How long has he been there?
I know, but I think he just will do. I think those guys, because look, they gave the MVP to. It's like with that Seahawks team that year when they couldn't pick who to give MVP to. We all know it should have gone to Michael Bennett or Cam Chancellor. For some reason, they gave it to Malcolm Smith, which was hilarious when they introduced all the MVPs at the start of the game, and you had all these like ex-players looking around like, who is this guy? Like they just didn't know who he was, which is funny. Like he won a competition. Yeah, it's going to be like that, and I think they're going to remember this unit. And so the likes of Wade Phillips, the likes of Malik Jackson, all these players, I think they'll end up just sticking them all in the Ring of Honor there in Denver. A very impressive performance, and I think if DeMarcus Ware, he's one of those sneaky candidates for retirement. They're got to renegotiate his deal anyway because they've got to bring all these players back: Osweiler, Jackson, Von Miller. They've got to bring all these guys back. And I also think at 34, he's kind of one of those candidates for leaving early on a high note to try and preserve the body and with family and that kind of stuff. But he was exceptional, and we also have to give credit to. Everyone's going to mention the pass rush because it was incredible. Everyone's going to mention the kind of the interesting blitz techniques. We mentioned the delayed stuff, the bringing the mic down to the weak side, the Wade Phillips did, and that was terrific. But also just give credit to the secondary and the linebacking core, and it all works in unison. It's a symbiotic relationship. Their ability to play press man coverage across the board with a single high guy against a guy like Cam Newton, because they just didn't respect the receiving core of Carolina, including Greg Olsen in that, was remarkable.
I'd definitely go for retirement if I was Ware. I mean, I'm assuming that Peyton Manning's going to retire, and we'll talk about this when we hear a decision from him, when the white smoke comes up from whichever cathedral he decides to live in for the next couple of weeks.
There's no doubt he's gone, by the way.
Yeah, and if that's the case, you're going probably with Brock Osweiler if you're the Denver Broncos. That's what you're going to do. And if you're DeMarcus Ware, you think, would you come back? No, go out on the high, just like Peyton is. Go out on the high. It's no point. Don't put yourself at more risk. You've made enough money. You've got that Super Bowl ring. I honestly don't see the point in coming back.
$40 million and love at the game. Like, that's the only thing I think that is keeping Peyton from retiring genuinely is it's no shame to be a guy who loves money. Peyton loves cash. There's no commercial ever he's turned down. He's slipping Budweiser into his 6 post-game press conferences and then saying it was a coincidence. Like, he kissed Papa John before he kissed his wife on the field, which is just remarkable.
Oh my God.
So Peyton still has $20 million left on the contract. The LA Rams are interested. I think Denver would feel like they'd have to bring him back if he was going to come back. I think they're kind of hoping that he does walk away. CBS was certainly trying to agitate him to declare it mid-game, or the end of the game, should I say. There's maybe a percentage of a chance he would come back, but I don't know.
I always think
DeMarcus Ware still playing at a Pro Bowl level, though, so if he might just want to play, now he has a ring, some guys just want to keep playing. Jared Allen just wants to keep playing, he hasn't got a ring, that's a bad example, but some of these guys just want to keep playing because this is what they've done all their life. They only get it for a certain amount of time. Some of them are probably fine with saying, like, what could DeMarcus Ware's knees happen now outside of a catastrophic injury that aren't already the wear and tear that would happen in 10 years? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think, and I don't know how true it is, but I'd like to think some of these guys, maybe the majority, but probably not. They're family men. They've got enough money to look after their family and themselves. There's a health scenario in here as well. And you kind of think, when enough is enough. And I just think that when you get that title, then why not just walk away?
That's true, but we don't know what their individual enough is. He might just, like I said, he might just want to be Dwight Freeney, edge rusher at 37, like I'm just 10 snaps a game, hunting quarterbacks. That seems like a fun life.
Yeah, it does seem like a bit of a laugh. Anybody else you want to pick up on the Denver side of things, Ollie?
I think we've covered all of them. We've mentioned the secondary, the linebacking core, the job that Wade Phillips did. Let's give some credit to Gary Kubiak. This isn't just all the Wade Phillips show. He has to sign off on this stuff. They build a game plan together. They had 2 weeks to prepare. This is just a great example of, sometimes I get caught up in this, that this is I always mention that it's a one-off game, but the ability to build a scheme in 2 weeks to adapt to the opponent rather than just maybe do what you do. I'm always of the school of just do what we do and make it work. And this was an example of, we've notified 5 or 6 things that isn't a favorable matchup for us on tape. So let's just change them in 2 weeks. And every single one of them worked out for Denver because they were smarter.
Okay, Ollie, there it is. 24-10. The Denver Broncos are the world champions.
Yeah, can we talk about halftime show then a little bit about Marshawn?
Okay, let's talk about the halftime show. Now, I think they went with Viva La Vida, didn't they? You called that, Ollie, didn't you?
I did. I was proud.
Started off with that. Bit of a adventure of a lifetime and some other kind of things. I thought they did good. Now, I sent a tweet out as well. Now, I know everyone loves Beyonce and they love Bruno Mars and all that kind of jazz. In my opinion, Ollie, I like Coldplay, and I like the music that they play, particularly the music they played at the start. Everyone was jumping around, dancing. Maybe it's not for anyone. I don't think they needed anybody out there to help them. I think Beyonce and Bruno Mars brought it down, not because they've made it... No, wait. Not because they made it sad. It's actually just, in terms of my preference of what the music was playing, I would have preferred to continue to listen to Coldplay. And you know what? If you got the Black Eyed Peas out there, which they did several years ago, and then they brought out The Edge and other people, yeah, the Black Eyed Peas need all the bloody help they can get. Coldplay do not, and that's what irritated me.
Let's also remember, Tom, that you're a 30-something white English guy.
29.
Which makes you, 29, sorry, white English guy. You are not the core demographic of the National Football League.
Yeah,
it's not.
Well,
you're the core demographic of Coldplay, which is why everyone else who was the core demographic was really excited for Beyonce. I thought it was a strange decision to have them in the... I like them a lot, but for Super Bowl 50, they wanted to make it a big deal, so that was a strange choice. They already had Beyonce there, so why wasn't she the main... she basically was the main act that they brought out. They were basically her... what do you call it? Supporting act.
Careful.
No, that's the way they treated it, though. In fairness, Bruno Mars, by the way, was either coked out of his mind, on smack. He was on something. He was 3 seconds out the lip sync. At one point, he just gave up and started dancing. he was an embarrassment. She was sensational. She always is. She's the queen. And I thought they were really good. And, I don't really like when people jump on all the lip syncing. I do it because it does make me laugh a bit. But, that's what they do. The worst part was that the audio mix was terrible, so it could have been great in person, but it was terrible on TV until Beyonce came out, and it seemed like they figured stuff out, which was a bit suspicious.
I like the way they tried to do the whole looking back through all the halftime shows. I think that was a cool idea.
Yeah, but it just irritates me that every year people want Bruce Springsteen. Give me a break.
Oh, I love Bruce Springsteen.
Not halftime shows. Jesus.
That was great when he slid into the camera.
And the fact that they didn't show Janet was embarrassing. Have a sense of humor. NFL. Why'd you take everything so seriously? Jesus.
Yeah, and Beyonce totally rocked it. I've never known anyone with such enormous thighs just pull it off massively. She's just it, isn't it? She's got it, man. Whatever it is, she got it.
She has a presence, Tom, is what you're looking at, an aura. And she's just, did you see where she missed the jump, or she was about to fall over in heels, then she re-jumps and just bounces out and back into the dance routine?
I did not, because some jackass was telling me about his job. Some pisshead.
You should look it up. There's vines everywhere. She almost fell over. She rocks back. She just lands it perfectly because she's, a goddess, and it just keeps on rocking.
Yeah, some guy who'd had too many drinks came over to our table where me and my two friends were sat and just started talking my ear off. And when someone just doesn't get it, I'm not giving him anything back. I'm just going, yeah, great, trying to watch the TV, not looking at him at all. And he just keeps talking and talking literally for like the whole of the halftime show, man. What is going on? Just realise I don't want to have a conversation with you. I don't know you. You're just talking at me. I'm trying to watch something. Leave me alone. I'm just being polite.
Well, he didn't realise that, first of all, it was halftime, so he probably thought it was acceptable. He didn't realise that you were as excited for Coldplay as you were the second half. That was the problem.
Exactly. There you go. How about we talk about Marshawn then, my friend? What do you want to say about the Lynchmeister?
I just thought, again, I thought it was a great move. Middle of the fourth quarter, no one's even mentioning it today. It's going to be like segment 10 on SportsCenter or something. So he does it the way he wants to do it. It's interesting that people around the team seem to have known forever. Richard Sherman said that he's known for some time, and they've been trying to talk him out of it. This guy's leaving with many years left is just an interesting trend. And it's not something that, and it could just be that there's this small, like, I don't know how to really explain it, but we've had this forever. So I don't know if it's going to be blown out of proportion because we've had a couple in a row. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you look at the history, Earl Campbell, Barry Sanders, guys have often left with some years left. But we've had Calvin Johnson and Marshawn Lynch, who the years that Marshawn put together in Seattle are up there with the best of just carrying a team and being a percentage of the win. Huge. Calvin, obviously one of the 5 best receivers of all time, I think. The most indefensible receiver, I think, one-on-one in history. And these guys are walking away. Peyton's about to walk away. That's more of just a natural retirement thing. We're losing some big names.
Yeah, losing some big names. It kind of feels like a changeover. Kind of a new start for the NFL. These new stars are coming through. The Von Millers and the people like that. The new stars are coming through. It's the new school, Ollie. This has to happen every now and then. It's like Doctor Who. It's regenesis.
But Marshawn and Calvin are only 30, and we're going to have to deal with the next 3-4 years at least of the will they, won't they come back, Favre type stuff, because those guys.
Don't worry, nothing will ever be as bad as Favre.
Marshawn might be, because he would love that. I think he'd play into it. Also with Marshawn, what do you think? This is what I'm interested in with him. His next career move. He seems to love doing like the Conan stuff, but he hates talking to the media, which is interesting. And it reminds me. Do you remember Giovanni Carmazzi?
No, I have no idea who that is.
He was the quarterback the 49ers took instead of Tom Brady when Steve Mariucci thought that Carmazzi was the next Steve Young, which is amazing. Carmazzi played, I think, 3 games in the NFL. 2 of them were preseason games, and he went to run a goat ranch, and he's never been heard of again. Like, they can't get him for any documentaries or interviews. He runs a goat farm, and he's basically Amish at this point, which is amazing. Beautiful. Amazing not fall from grace, just what he wants to do. Do you think Marshawn's going to do stuff like that, where he just now disappears? That's his last tweet, his last public thing, and he's gone? Or do you think he's going to be doing all the halftime commercials still, turning up on Conan, doing like NFL Game Day Morning? What do you think his next career move is?
I could see them talking him into doing a reality show around his life.
Awesome. Great show.
Well, I honestly can, and that sounds ridiculous because he's somebody who avoids the media, but I think therefore he'd be able to just do it on his own terms.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a great watch. I think people would watch that. Honestly, I'd probably watch it, but I'd probably give up on it after a while because I don't particularly like the guy, to be quite honest. I don't find him a very interesting character, even though most people would say that he is. But I think that's definitely something that we do. You see the amount of shit reality shows they have, Real Housewives of Atlanta, Mob Wives, and stuff like that they have on ITVB. I mean, come on, a show with Marshawn Lynch? Definitely.
I think it'd certainly be pitched. Like, it's weird. Some stuff he really likes to do. Like I said, he's done Conan twice the last 2 years and seems to really enjoy it and like flourish in that kind of scenario. Yet he won't do Super Bowl press conference. It's like it's the football media. But the rest of it he kind of enjoys. I could see him doing a Mama Lynch, Son Lynch type reality show.
Sounds weird. Okay. Ollie, is there anything else you want to talk about before we close off this final game review podcast of the season?
I don't think we've missed anything. Von Miller was the clear MVP choice, right? That was no doubt. What are the other narratives people are going to discuss? We can do some narrative stuff if you want.
Narrative stuff? Well, I don't know about narratives.
It's all going to be Cam, isn't it?
Well, people are going to talk. First of all, we need to know what's happening with Peyton Manning's retirement, and then we can talk about legacy and all that kind of stuff. I think some people might be actually going down the narrative of the whole John Elway. I mean, this is a guy who was a quarterback who, won the titles, and now he's a general manager and an executive or whatever that's put him together for another title.
Great point. a point that is very, very relevant to make to yourself and to Green Bay Packer Nation. Hear me out, people. I've been stressing this for a while, and it's only because I love that organization so much because they remind me of Liverpool Football Club. Is why I love them so much.
Okay. I take offense to that, but never mind.
Really?
No, I'm joking.
You know what I mean? Kind of the relationship between fans and players and what have you.
Yeah, I know.
Denver had 6 starters from week 17 last year playing the Super Bowl of starters this year. They radically transformed the roster in one season because John Elway is a footballing genius. And look at all the players they have, not named Von Miller, and where did they get them from? Where did they get Aqib Talib? Where did they get Derek Wolfe? Where did they get Peyton Manning? Where did they get all these players? Where did they find Evan Mathis? They found them in free agency. People only ever talk about free agency when it's the big bust. How can you give all that money to Ndamukong Suh? Now, does Peyton Manning come around all that time? Obviously not. Green Bay has Aaron Rodgers. You have to be willing to spend money in free agency in the right spots, pick up the right people to find that DeMarcus Ware. You guys went and got Julius Peppers. That's an apples to apples comparison. Can you find some of these pieces that you keep to leaves? I said all the time, Tom, Darrelle Revis was there. Why did the Packers not go and get him when the Patriots tried to go get him? I think that when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, here's the thing with Cam Newton that everyone's talking about. He got here once. Don't worry about it. He's going to have a bunch of tries. Really? Rodgers has been
That's exactly what I thought, Ollie, coming out of this game, is that, and I completely agree with you on every sense, they've got a limited window with Aaron Rodgers, so they've got to take a punt on some more free agents that could have an impact. But I completely felt the same way about Cam Newton. It's not easy. They only give one of them out a year, as you always say. It's not going to be that easy for him to get back. He could have blown his only chance. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say.
It's absolutely not.
Is completely legit. You know, he could have just blown his only chance.
I'm going to write about this today, and this is why he gets so pissed off and why people are silly to hammer him for being pissed. Dan Marino got to 1 in his second year, never got back again. Dan Marino, the best natural throw of a ball I think there's ever been. Drew Brees went to 1. Aaron Rodgers went to 1. Like, you just don't get there all that often. And also remember that the way the league is now, look at how many guys are getting there. They're either leaving money on the table. Peyton Manning left $4 million on the table this year to bring free agents in. Tom Brady is leaving half his salary on the table to bring players in. Russell Wilson got there on a rookie contract. Like, to build and construct these teams that New England, Denver did on defense, Seattle did on defense, they are not paying their quarterback as much money because they got to try and distribute the wealth all the way around. Cam is now going into a mega money contract like Joe Flacco, like Ben Roethlisberger, like these guys. It's going to be tough to keep everyone around forever, which is why you have to cash in when you get there. Guys don't get back all the time. Like, the only guy who's got back consistently, or the only guys, are Peyton, Ben, and Brady from the AFC.
It's interesting as well. I think you make a very good point about Peyton and Brady leaving money on the table, etc. I think that's because they've gone through their, I mean, I know they weren't as big as the contracts are now, but their mega contracts, so to speak. So,
no doubt.
I mean, Rodgers is still in that. So I think maybe once he's earned his $100 million in 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, then he might start leaving money on the table. But to be quite honest, within that time, he needs to get back there.
Yeah, let me just clarify. I in no way want them to leave money on the table. I am all about that. There should be no salary cap, first of all.
You're all about the money.
Yeah, they should absolutely. I mean, if bloody Mark Cuban wants to pay LeBron James $200 million a year, he should be able to pay LeBron James $200 million a year. If the Packers have to pay, $60 million a year to keep Aaron Rodgers around, they should have to pay $60 million. That's his market value. So I'm not saying you should leave money on the table. Far from it. What I'm saying is that's just evidence of what's happened. First of all, Tom Brady's wife makes far more money than he does anyway. So he's fine. He's 50-50 household income there. Peyton has all the commercials in the world. He doesn't need the cash. And he only left $4 million. And by the way, he made it back by getting $2 million for the championship game in the AFC and $2 million for the Super Bowl. So he made his money back. Not saying they should leave money. I'm just saying that the construct of those teams is that those guys don't make as much money as they could do. Therefore, they can spend it in other ways. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't make the most money in the league anyway at that position, right? So it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Other narratives, Ollie, that you could possibly think of?
Gary Kubiak. I wrote a piece at the start of the season that said that Kubiak and Manning is the perfect fit for Kubiak's offense. It's the best coaching hire for him, which was funny because the offense was so ineffective since like week 10. That's funny, but I'm happy for Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak and Wade Phillips both fired 2 years ago by the Texans, both hoisting a Lombardi trophy today. And like I said, everyone's going to give the credit to Wade Phillips, yet in other scenarios we can't wait to give all the credit to the head coach. So let's be fair and reasonable and not write the pieces just yet about Kubiak is the worst head coach to ever win a Super Bowl and put him in that kind of company, Brian Billick, those type of people. Like, let's just give him credit that he was able to manage this roster successfully, and he had the balls to make the move back to Peyton. I mean, people were asking for Osweiler. I was asking for Osweiler. He said, no, I'm going to ride or die with the Sheriff, and it worked out.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say he's the worst, head coach ever. The what I was going to put it as, is he the most nondescript head coach ever? As in just kind of like, oh, there's that guy.
But I've made this point time and time again, like, within the game, people rave about him. He is so beloved. Everywhere he goes, they run the same 5 run plays, and he tears the league up with a running game. It's remarkable. He does it in Denver originally. That's how they win Super Bowls with Elway. He does it in Baltimore last season by shredding New England in that title game. He does it with Denver for parts this year, not as successful as it has been in the past. He did it with Houston with Arian Foster for a while. The guy is an incredibly good offensive mind. You pair that with Wade Phillips. They were successful in Denver, in Houston, get into the playoffs with TJ Yates and Matt Schaub. And then you give him Peyton Manning with no arm and no legs, and they win a title.
Yeah, you got to give him a lot of credit there, and it's going to be interesting to see if Peyton Manning retires, how they're going to do next year and how they do with Brock Osweiler. I'm excited for Peyton to move away now, and let's look at him, with that kind of halo around his head, painted in a Michelangelo, fascia on the wall of the Sistine Chapel. And let's look at him in that way now and then move on to the next generation.
And with Osweiler, let's not be so sure he's going to be back in Denver. Free agent to be. A lot of people that Denver's got to bring back, but they'd rather re-sign the entire defense or bring back Brock Osweiler. And maybe their internal evaluation is he's not the guy we thought he was. And not
you hit restart and get a quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, and maybe not restart. Maybe there's another free agent they prefer. Maybe they think Sam Bradford's better and they think he could win with that defense. Maybe they think Nick Foles could win with that defense. Who knows? Maybe, like you said, it could just be in the draft. Maybe they trade for someone and try and check on the window. John Elway has demonstrated that he can go out and acquire a Peyton Manning. He can build a young roster, and then when needed to, he can detonate that in an off-season, bring in a new coaching staff, bring in your roster and win a Super Bowl. So Elway's going to do his thing, and he's more often right.
Exactly. There you go. Ollie, I think we've covered all the narratives.
All of it done.
All of it done. What a game. What a season.
Any questions at all now?
No, I don't. Well, we'll look at questions next time. Please, honestly, we really want you to hit us up, not only with questions, listeners, but also with what you want to hear in the off-season. It's a long off-season, we all know that. And we're going to do the standard draft stuff, team previews, all that kind of stuff. If you want us to play some games, if you want us to talk about a specific thing, maybe explain something or X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, just hit us up. Hashtag MCFS. Use @ThomasMoore27, @Ollie Conley, or get an email to us, contact@thereadoptional.com. If you want to write something longer that you want us to take a look at that, please send it to that address because we really love to hear from you. Contact@thereadoptional.com, Ollie.
All right, man. I got to go.
Okay, you got to go. Right, fair play. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the off-season. We'll be with you all the way through. And please drink responsibly and drive safe. For now, it's goodbye from Ollie.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Good night, everyone.